Today, New York Times had an excellent piece about drone strikes. They talked about Miram Shah, a frontier Pakistani town in the north of Pakistan, and it's a case study in how drone strikes can go wrong. There's been 13 drone strikes specifically in the town and 25 in adjoining districts, and it has led to an absolute mess. Now, look, what kind of place is it? Well, it's a place like many in northern Pakistan where the people, the citizens, the civilians are caught between us and the Taliban, and there are no good alternatives. For example, the army, the Pakistani army, working in collaboration with us, turns off the cell phone networks because they don't want the Taliban to cooperate and to be able to use their cell phones, but then the people are restricted and can't talk to the outside world. There's a lot of civilians who live there, obviously, right? And then the Taliban turns off the internet in the internet cafes because they're worried that the young guys are watching racy material, including porn, which of course they are because they're like everybody else. They're human beings. You know what's the most common thing you see kids wearing in this town in northern Pakistan? Jerseys of Manchester United. Manchester United. That's because they're playing soccer. They love soccer. They see Manchester United on television. So they're like kids anywhere else in the world. Of course, right? But they have concerns that are not like everybody else's. That's partly because of the Taliban, as I explained. And look, there's parts of town that have been taken over by Uzbeki militants. There's a lot of people that flow through the area. Yes, there's clearly Taliban in the area as well. Sometimes they even direct traffic. But there's also the threat of the constant drones above their heads, and they don't know when they're going to strike and who they're going to strike. And oftentimes they get it completely wrong. Now, back in May, President Obama gave a speech, and he said, for the first time, that perhaps that they don't always get it right. Now, in the past, they had said outrageous things like that a single civilian had not been killed by drone strikes. That's what Brennan had said. He's now the head of the CIA. That's unbelievable. Now they finally had to amend and say, okay, perhaps a couple of civilians had been killed. And Obama in that speech said that the civilian deaths from drone strikes will haunt him and others in the chain of command for as long as they shall live. Now, do you really believe that? Well, if they really haunted them, why did they continue to do indiscriminate drone strikes that also kill civilians? So let me give you examples. And by the way, before I do, let me give you a quote from President Obama. He said, now, quote, there must be near certainty that no civilians will be killed or injured. Number one, shouldn't that have been the standard all along? Okay, and number two, is that really the case? Well, there's a new Amnesty International report out, and as the New York Times explains, it examines 45 known strikes in northern Waziristan between January 2012 and August 2013, so that's very recent, and asserts that in several cases, drones killed civilians indiscriminately. Now, if you really care about making sure the civilians don't die and that they haunt you, you wouldn't really kill them indiscriminately. And look, this particular article doesn't talk about it, but we've talked about it on the show oftentimes. The reason the strikes are indiscriminate is because some of them are what's called signature strikes, where we literally do not know who we're killing. Wait till you find out at the end of this story who some of those people are. So, Nazir Gul is a shopkeeper in this town of Miram Shah, and he says, the drones are like the angels of death. Only they know when and where they will strike. Now, we're supposed to be the good guys. Now, we get it if they're terrorized by the Taliban or Al-Qaeda in their town. They're not also supposed to be terrorized by us. New York Times continues. A new Amnesty International investigation had found, among other points, that at least 19 civilians in the surrounding area of North Waziristan had been killed in just 2 of the drone attacks since January of 2012, a time when the Obama administration has held that strikes have been increasingly accurate and free of mistakes. So 19, not militants, civilians killed in just 2 of those strikes. So when they tell you, oh, no, these are very targeted and we know what we're doing, they're lying to you. Some of them are targeted, some of them are, I don't know, there's some activity below. Let's just shoot it just in case. So New York Times explains that the drones have hit a bakery, a disused girls' school, and a money changers market, the residents say. So I don't believe a bakery is a dangerous place. Now look, it could be that there was evidence that, oh my God, all of the top Al-Qaeda leaders had met in a bakery, but there is no such evidence, right? There's evidence to the contrary that as Amnesty International is pointing out, we oftentimes kill civilians. Well, that also has a secondary effect that the Times explains. The constant presence of circling drones and accompanying tension over when or whom they will strike is a crushing psychological burden for many residents. And this is something that's been described over and over. If you watch any of the Brave New Foundation work on this, first of all, we've shown you some of their work and the dead kids from the area. That's just unbelievable, and it makes you so sad for what we have done. But the second thing they emphasize is like 6-year-old kids that won't go back in their house in the middle of the night when they hear a drone because they know the drones hit the houses. And one dad trying to talk his kid out of a tree is a 6-year-old, and the kid says, "No, I don't want to die," like he's seen his neighbors die. So now we go to the 2 cases recently of people who've been hit by drone strikes. Well, one of them was a 14-year-old boy who was killed near the Afghan border. That was in July of 2012. And another one was a 68-year-old woman named Mamana Bibi. What was her big crime? Well, she was picking vegetables in a field. Now, if they really knew what they were doing, would they really use a drone strike on a 68-year-old woman clearly not related to the Taliban or Al-Qaeda in any way, shape, or form in the middle of picking vegetables? They don't know what they're doing. I recently interviewed someone who used to be a CIA spy, Lindsay Moran, and she explained to me that the CIA is filled with regular folks that you would see in any job. Oftentimes, they might be smart and competent, and oftentimes they're lazy and incompetent. So instead of getting good intelligence on who the actual Al-Qaeda or Taliban leaders are, they go, I don't know, there's someone playing with the ground there. Maybe they're planting a bomb. Maybe they're a 68-year-old woman planting tomatoes. I don't care. Kill them, and we'll put them up on the board as something we accomplished. Well, congratulations, you accomplished killing this 68-year-old grandmother. Mustafa Qadri, he's a reporter actually for Amnesty International, says the killing of Mamana Bibi appears to be a clear case of extrajudicial execution. It's extremely difficult to see how she could have been mistaken for a militant, let alone an imminent threat to the U.S. Think about that, man. They say that they only kill people who are imminent threats to the U.S. What were her tomatoes going to do to us? They're lying. Get it through your head. This is what drives me crazy about the media in America today. They believe what the government says until it is overwhelmingly disproved. No, you're supposed to be the watchdog of the government. You're not supposed to just take what they say at face value. Look, we're going to get to hear from Bibi's son, Rafiq-ur-Rahman, is actually going to come to the United States. Again, Brave New Foundation has done terrific work on exposing all that's happened in northern Pakistan here. And he's going to testify, and we're going to actually hear from actual civilians on the ground as to what those drone strikes are doing. Not only killing civilians, but turning whole sets of populations against us. What's the point of that? Well, if you're part of the military-industrial complex, maybe the point of that is more war, more hostility. If that's the point, unfortunately, mission accomplished.